What if the monsters your grandmother warned you about were never just stories? What if they were warnings? Tonight, 7 creatures that science laughed at, until it stopped laughing. Across every culture, every continent, every era of human history. People who had never met each other, who spoke completely different languages, who lived thousands of miles apart, described the exact same things. Giant apes in the mountains, sea beasts the size of ships, half-human creatures lurking in the dark. For centuries, scientists called these stories folklore, superstition, the product of fearful, uneducated minds. But here's what's uncomfortable. Some of those minds turn out to be right. This is not a video about fantasy. This is a video about evidence, about creatures that were mythical, right up until the moment they weren't. Here are 7 mythical creatures that might actually be real. Number 1. The creature that has embarrassed more scientists than any other being on Earth. Bigfoot. Native American tribes across North America, the Lummi, the Stsales, the Chehalis, have documented encounters with a massive, upright walking, hair-covered giant for over 1,000 years. They didn't call it a monster. They called it a neighbor, a forest guardian, something that deserved respect. Then in 1958, a construction crew in Northern California found enormous footprints near their worksite, 16 inches long. The story hit the newspapers. The world went insane. And then, in 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured what became the most analyzed, most debated 59 seconds of film in history. A large, upright figure, covered in dark hair, walking calmly through a clearing in Bluff Creek, California, and briefly turning to look directly at the camera. Scientists have spent decades trying to prove it's a man in a suit. And here's the thing, they haven't been able to. The stride length, the muscle movement under the fur, the proportions. Every attempt to debunk it raises more questions than it answers. Now, is Bigfoot real? Here's what we do know. The mountain gorilla was considered a myth until 1902. The giant squid, a myth until 2004. The okapi, laughed at until 1901. Science has a long and embarrassing history of calling real animals impossible. And let's be honest, if something that big actually lives out there in the woods, it's doing a much better job of avoiding humans than most of us do at family reunions. Number 2. The Kraken. Norse sailors in the 13th century wrote of a beast rising from the depths, a creature with arms like tree trunks that could drag entire ships underwater. The Icelandic sagas described it as stretching 1.5 miles in every direction. For hundreds of years, this was pure myth, a sailor's exaggeration, a bedtime story to frighten children. Then, on January 21, 2002, a French research vessel off the coast of the Azores captured something extraordinary on film. Architeuthis ducks, the giant squid, up to 43 feet long, eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes of any living animal on Earth, powerful enough to leave suction cup scars on sperm whales. We have never seen a fully grown giant squid alive in its natural habitat. Not once. The ocean is 71% of this planet, and we have explored less than 20% of it. Think about that. 80% of Earth's oceans are unexplored. There are things down there that haven't read the memo that they're not supposed to exist. Number 3. A flying creature so large it blotted out the sun. The thunderbird. Indigenous peoples from the Pacific Northwest to the Great Plains described an enormous bird, wingspan stretching wider than any creature in nature, that controlled storms, struck lightning from its eyes, and nested on mountaintops where no human dared climb. In South America, the ancient Mapuche and Andean peoples carved similar creatures into stone. In Central Africa, the Kongamato, a massive flying reptile, was reported by locals and even by British explorer Frank Melland in 1923, who showed witnesses a picture of a pterodactyl and watched their faces go pale. Here is where history becomes very strange. In 1977, in Lawndale, Illinois, 2 enormous birds were witnessed attempting to carry a 10-year-old boy named Marlon Lowe. His mother saw it. Neighbors saw it. It made national news. Scientists pointed to something they know existed, Argentavis magnificens, a real bird, extinct for 6 million years, wingspan of 23 feet, weight of 160 pounds, the largest flying creature ever documented in the fossil record. Except, here's the quiet part, we don't actually know when the last one died. We just know when we stopped finding the bones. Number 4. The creature that Scotland built an entire tourism industry around. Nessie. The first recorded sighting of something strange in Loch Ness comes from the year 565 AD, when St. Columba allegedly encountered a water beast in the River Ness. For 1,400 years, locals quietly kept the secret. Then in 1933, a couple driving along the loch shore saw something massive and dark rolling through the water. The newspaper headline, "Strange Spectacle on Loch Ness." Within weeks, the world descended. The famous 1934 surgeon's photograph showed a long neck rising from dark water and convinced millions. It was later revealed to be a hoax using a toy submarine. Science declared victory. Case closed. Except the sightings never stopped. In 2018, a team of scientists from New Zealand conducted an EDNA survey of Loch Ness, collecting water samples and analyzing every microscopic trace of genetic material in the lake. They found no plesiosaur DNA, but they found something unexpected, an enormous amount of giant eel DNA, far beyond what the known eel population could account for. There's a surprisingly large amount of eel genetic material, lead researcher Professor Neil Gemmell told reporters, choosing his words very carefully. The loch is 755 feet deep. Visibility drops to 0 below 30 feet. It contains more fresh water than all the lakes of England and Wales combined. And now, scientists are quietly asking, what size does an eel have to grow before we start calling it a monster? Number 5. This one is different. This one lives inside people. The Wendigo. The Algonquin-speaking peoples of North America described the Wendigo as a spirit or a being that possessed humans who had survived winter by eating other humans. Once it entered you, the hunger never stopped. You grew taller, thinner, more monstrous. The more you consumed, the more you craved. For years, this was dismissed as mythology, a cautionary tale about cannibalism. Then psychiatrists discovered something real: Wendigo psychosis, a culture-bound syndrome first documented in scientific literature in the 20th century, in which individuals from Algonquin communities, typically in extreme winter isolation and famine, developed genuine delusions of transforming into a cannibalistic creature. Some cases resulted in violence. The condition was real enough that in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Canadian courts prosecuted multiple cases involving it. The creature was a myth. The monster, it turns out, was always psychological, which, if you think about it, is somehow even more terrifying. Number 6. The Yeti. For over 2,000 years, Sherpa and Tibetan communities described a massive, white-furred, upright creature they called Yeti, the thing in the rocks. They didn't hike up to look for it. They avoided certain passes because of it. In 1951, British explorer Eric Shipton photographed something that stopped the scientific world cold: enormous, clearly defined footprints in the snow at 19,000 feet elevation, 13 inches wide, belonging to something bipedal, something heavy. Then in 2017, a team from Oxford University conducted the most comprehensive genetic analysis of alleged Yeti samples ever attempted. Hair, bone, skin, collected from across the Himalayas and Tibetan Plateau. Most samples matched known bears, but one, from a 40,000-year-old fossil jawbone found in the Tibetan Plateau, matched a species that wasn't supposed to exist there. Ursus thibetanus, crossed with something ancient. Something that split from polar bear lineage hundreds of thousands of years ago and adapted to high altitude in ways we don't fully understand. The monks were right. There is something large and pale living in those mountains. It just has a more boring Latin name than anyone hoped for. Number 7. And this one might be the most unsettling of all. The sea serpent. Every maritime civilization on Earth, the Greeks, the Norse, the Japanese, the Polynesians, the Mayans, independently described the same creature. An enormous, long-necked, serpentine beast lurking in deep waters. Too big to fight, too fast to escape. In 1848, HMS Daedalus, a British Royal Navy ship, officially reported encountering a sea serpent in the South Atlantic. The captain, the officers, the crew, all submitted signed, sworn statements. The British Admiralty didn't know what to do with it. They still don't. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. The oarfish, Regalicus glesn, real, documented, can reach 56 feet in length. making it the longest bony fish on Earth. It lives in the deep mesopelagic zone. It almost never comes to the surface. Almost. And yet this explains only the smaller sea serpent reports, the ones describing something closer to 20 or 30 feet. What about the HMS Daedalus account, where officers estimated the creature at 60 feet with a head 4 feet wide? What about the 1977 Japanese fishing vessels Io Maru, which hauled up a decomposing carcass off New Zealand that, and this is documented, Japanese scientists initially believed might be a plesiosaur? They took photographs, tissue samples, and measurements before releasing it back into the sea. The tissue analysis was inconclusive. The ocean is not finished surprising us. Not even close.